All right, so survived another crazy ass memory. Survived another crazy ass memory, and that's what's going on right now. Is I'm going through the timeline of history of memories, and it's cell memory, and feeding them. We can call them demons too, I guess, and then eventually releasing them, and that's pretty much the J world. It's not reproducing the memories. So you're looping in this never-ending loop until you use up all the resources in your body, mind, and spirit, or reproduce the same memories. It's going through them, acknowledging them, giving them life and honor, and then releasing them and developing new memories. And so then when you can look back on all the memories, they don't bring up any sort of aggressive hormonal reaction. It's just a memory that was there, means nothing really, and then you move on and you don't react. And that's the thing about the J world, is if you want to get to the next level, surpassing the hay flick, you have to acknowledge every single physical, intellectual, and psychological memory. And if some of those memories are too much, then yeah, people will not survive getting to the next level. And so they're stuck looping in whatever comfortable tree ring they're in right now. And so what you're seeing on Facebook are many people looping in those comfortable tree rings of memories, and they can't get out of it, and you can't make them get out of it. And that's one of the lessons that I learned through the J world, is some people will not be able to get out of that one tree ring that they're stuck in. And it could be in the conspiracy world, it could be in the holistic world, it could be in the allopathic world, it could be in their politics, religion, science. And so the system obviously gave us a culture and then developed these cultures and gave people ways to be rewarded for whatever they're doing, and also with a little bit of justice through the justice system. But you ultimately had to figure out, with everything they've given you, what would you reproduce? And then also, what could you learn from all the lessons that you were ever taught? And some people don't remember the lessons because they've drugged themselves or carved out certain things, and then it manifested into something different. And so that's why I'm saying that those that receive surgeries will have a hard time remembering those painful lessons of being under anesthesia, and then your cells are going through the brutality of being cut into. That's why I don't like the surgical industry, because the amount of damage it does to a person. And if they wanted to get a second chance at life, they would have to remember something that they never even knew they went through. I mean, they went through the pain afterwards when all the painkillers wore off. But when you actively have to remember what somebody did to you when you were under anesthesia, that's not a memory people want to go back to. And I completely understand that. And so if you're lucky enough not to be forced under the knife as a child, maybe as an adult, you might get a second chance at life if you can handle sitting in the old memories that you probably went through, that you do remember and have to go and feed and release. And so, yeah, so yesterday's pain in my shoulders, I mean, it was weird. It was like I was wearing a backpack and feeling the heaviness of the backpack. It was like reliving. It's like the ghost of the backpack on my back yesterday. And I could feel it in my shoulders, because I remember when I was in the military and we were carrying all of our gear. And what was in the gear? It was like our uniforms, our second pair of boots. It was a lot of clothes, yes, uniforms. And it was some, like even our personal effects that were in the backpack. And we were marching to our dorms, our bays. And I'll tell you, I remember when I finally unpacked and everything, I go into the bathroom and I see these red dots, no different than the red dots I saw when I had an allergic reaction to sulfa, which is a type of antibiotic. Man, the red dots, like broken blood vessels. And so, yeah, when you get an allergic reaction to something like an antibiotic and you're seeing red dots on your body, that's broken blood vessels, because of too much white cells were developed and are causing too much growth. And then, yes, broken blood vessels. And so yesterday was like repairing the broken blood vessels. And then, of course, all the arm pain and all that stuff is repairing so much damage that I've done that I didn't even know I did to myself, or knew that I ever have to revisit that. And that's the thing. You know, you either reproduce the trauma in your children, or you feed it, acknowledge it, even say hi to it in your dreams, and then release it. And hopefully you survive revisiting the past. And so the thing about the VACCINES, I was so excited when I made this discovery yesterday. And they actually said in the actual written language, these are inactive, dead microbes that they cause no disease, right? They only cause disease when the offspring are that influential. That's why some people react to some of these therapies and others don't even have any reaction, because the offspring that was developed from the dead fornicating with the living, he's basically a ghost. What is it called? Microbe necrophilia or something. When some people don't have an aggressive offspring, others do. Microbial necrophilia. That's basically what the VACCINES are. Microbial necrophilia, and it's basically having ectoplasm injected. You're getting the ghosts of the past injected into, because they're not alive, they're dead. And when the system brings in the dead world into your body, like ghosts, and they develop offspring, sometimes those ghosts turn into your children. Yes, absolutely. Because they're mixing in with all your biochemistry, and then of course that's the incubus and succubus developing the semen, developing the eggs. And then you see these girls on the hunt, on the move. You see these men on the hunt, on the move, hunting for their next, conquest. And then you get children out of that because, of course, mixing in, all the bodily fluids. And of course, all the therapies. And then taking all the remedies to trap those beasts inside. That's what the whole Big Brother and CBS, when they're trapping people inside of a studio and then seeing what happens, who screws who and who does what, whatever, like Ultimate Survivor. When you're trapped with people on a traumatic event like surviving the wilderness naked or something, like Naked and Afraid, or stuck in a studio, or like The Real World in MTV. When you're bringing all these different people together, and you're seeing who does what. It's like a petri dish. And then that video that I posted, that video about war in a petri dish, that's just like your family, your friends. That's like go swimming in a pool with a bunch of people. War in a petri dish. And if you have open wounds or anything else, or people have, activated, immune systems, things come out and things, and it's crazy. It's crazy how the war in the petri dish, then it's the microbes, the strongest microbes. And that was like, even the gang cultures in the different homogenized areas. War in the petri dish, you have these dividing lines, people marking their turf, and you see people crossing that, and you see people do stuff to each other, and it's crazy. And so when you have that in a community where you have two warring factions, whether it's gangs or whatever, or cultures like in New York, like West Side Story, and then you trap in two types of microbes. One is really, really aggressive. The other one maybe, and the other one is strategic. That video about the petri dish, or is it rhodococcus or something? That's what they called it. I forget the names. But he was that microbe was really strategic, and it actually enveloped the other microbe, and then found a way to get into that one and then commandeer it. These microbes are so influential. And so when you get all these microbes together, and then people are taking on these microbes intravenously, or they're mixing in with other people, having sex, having children, we're developing some really aggressive prototypes that, yes, are like little demons stalking this earth, and the system has to watch them, of course. But yeah, you're in a fight to the death. You're in a fight to the death of the strongest microbe or the strongest human. And that doesn't mean that you're like mostly strong. It's the most adaptable, most tolerant human who realizes the war is not out there. The war is not the immigrants coming in. The war is not, your neighbor. The war is totally in here. The war is who you bring into your world that you have to go and take care of and have to deal with their lifestyle and belief systems and their microbes and watching the suffering. Because you can't make them, you can't make them suffer. You take away their suffering. Sometimes they don't survive the treatments. And so the war is in here. And then all the memories that come up. But that's the thing about reproduction right now, is that people are reproducing the lessons they never learned. And so when you watch your kids repeat the same mistakes, yeah, because you never learned, mom and dad, how are your kids going to learn if you don't learn? And here's the thing, during this climate change, there is no guarantee your kids are going to survive, because the parents are the one that has to learn from their mistakes, and maybe they have the infrastructure. But if your kids, even though your kids might be stronger than you, maybe they're bigger, if they already learned your traditions and your habits, what makes you think they're going to do anything different? Even if they watched you do something different, and maybe you potentially could survive, or maybe you don't. And so what chance does your offspring have if mom and dad have not figured out how to redirect whatever is going on and sit with the pain and suffering? And so that's pretty much a valuable lesson. So that's why I'm not super impressed when people say, oh yeah, I'm having a bunch of kids. Because those are lessons that you're never going to learn. Those kids are not going to learn any lessons, really. They'll learn whatever is in the environment, or whatever the government teaches them. But when you think about what's going on now and the lessons that I've been revisiting and sitting with and feeling the pain and suffering in my shoulders, I mean, now I have a much better range of motion. I mean, it's still it's still a little bit painful doing this, but it's better range. But I'll tell you, it's still like, but it was bad yesterday. I felt right here, right where I would have the backpack hold so much weight, was where I was so sore, like I worked out or something. And that was great. That was memory from the military. And that was a clear memory of the military, because that right there, again, was where all the blood vessels were popping from the heavy backpack. And so the system has now given us a chance to redirect everything and to finally sit at home and sit with the memories and sit with the lessons. And if you can't do that, then you'll be out there distracted in your politics, religion, science, not learn anything, have sex, reproduce the same, mistakes, because that's what kids are. They're a reproduction of your mistakes. And they'll go through the same thing, repeat the same mistakes until somebody finally learns. And so that's the thing about what the J world's about, is somebody strong enough to sit with their mistakes and not reproduce them again. And that's, whoa, that's a major realization. And so when I was laughing yesterday and I was going like, oh my God, the dead men of Dunharrow, which is Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings. I'm like, your gut is Middle Earth. The system is so freaking funny. And so, yeah, you're dealing with the dead men of Dunharrow right now in your gut. And we are reproducing the ghosts of the past. That's why you're seeing so many doppelgangers. That's why it's not a surprise to see that guy, Brian Moser, look like Richard Ramirez in Dexter. I'm just like, oh my God. People are like, oh, they're time travelers. I guess you can call that, yeah. When you're getting DNA from the past mixed in with all the different therapies. The reason why these therapies, or the reason why COVID is so aggressive, is because everybody not only gave their samples and it was purified, and then the DNA, which is dead and inactive, like they told you, is then inserted back into the population through the therapies. And then you have climate change, which is making them really strong. So the offspring are so strong that then they metastasize, and sometimes through this heat, they turn into human calamari. They turn into blood clots. People don't survive them. They don't survive the ghosts that metastasize in their blood vessels. And so the feeling that I felt yesterday when I woke up from that nap, and it was hot, and I felt like I had bubbles under my armpits. Like I felt like I was walking like I had so much stuff. And then taking that hot shower, opening up all the blood vessels, and then just blowing my nose and hawking up loogies and loogies and loogies and it was just crazy. But sometimes it's necessary. Because if you don't release that pressure in your blood vessels, in your lymph nodes, then people are going to be afraid to eat. They're going to be afraid to release. And then the pressure builds up, and then it's called the rupture. People don't survive energy conversion because they have stopped up different areas of their body from releasing. And so that's why also you're seeing women out there say they can't eat meat, milk, cheese, and eggs or anything. They're starving. They think everything is poison. And they're also saying, oh, people in other countries can't eat American food because people in other countries are fucking starving. They can't handle air, food, and water. They can't handle aggressive nutrition like you need. But I'm eating pizza oven. I'm eating fried chicken, pizza, hamburgers. Not only am I eating, deer meat, which is cleaner meat, they say, but I'm eating beef. I'm eating pork. I'm eating tortillas and salsa. And I like the guacamole. And that has given my body ammunition to release the fucking demons. When you're getting inflammation and mucus because you drank milk, yeah, your body needs a carrier force to carry out the fucking demons. What do you think is going on? But again, you can't make people suffer. So what do? People do? They just take away food systematically. So let's say you have 100 items that you could eat that are like meat, milk, cheese, eggs, fruits, and vegetables. And you're like, oh, one day you eat meat and you feel stuff. You're like, oh, God, I can't eat meat anymore. So take meat away. And then one day you drink some milk or eat some ice cream and you get inflammation because your body needs it. You're like, oh, God, I can't feel the inflammation. And they take milk away. So then you're seeing that list of 100 items are down to now about 5 items they could eat. And they're obviously starving, malnourished. You think they're going to survive climate change? No. Then they turn to vegan and vegetarian. Then they become clean eaters. And then they're really skinny and they're looking hot and sexual. So then they're like, okay, I'm looking hot and sexual. I'm skinny. They have a really skinny waist, hardly any boobs, just enough to be sensitive for whoever, right? Maybe they have a lot of hair because that's what happens when you have skinny bodies, which I've noticed a trend, even myself. When I had a skinny body, I had a bunch of hair, so much hair. The system programmed it that way. And so when you see these kids and you see these adults who have skinny bodies, they have so much hair. Sometimes you have a bigger body and a lot of hair too. But what I've seen a lot is those are like on Ozempic or any of those types of drugs, the diet drugs. They have a skinny body, lots of hair, and they can't handle air, food, and water. And they're only relegated to about 5 items out there on the menu that used to be 100 items. But now they can't eat anything. And they're going like, oh, should I eat goat milk instead of regular milk? And oh, but I can't even eat that anymore. I can't do soy because it's a hormone replacement therapy type of thing, or it's too much, progesterone or something, I guess. Something with hormones with soy. These poor girls, and guys too, are starving. Because they can't handle doing this without blowing blood vessels and feeling like they're going to die. I can do that because I've been conditioned to do that. I've been conditioning the last so many years. So you feel bad, but you can't make anyone suffer. You can't force them to eat food. And so if they weigh next to nothing and they can drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, and live off of fumes and be basically a ghost until that doesn't work anymore, okay, more power to them. But I'm not doing this to convert them because you can't make people eat. You can't make them feel pain and suffering. But they are the examples. And then when you get so many surgeries, yeah, and Botox, plastic surgery, yeah. Can you imagine a girl that had gotten so much Botox and all these different things done to them, and then they do my world and they don't treat their pain and suffering, they eat a bunch of food, milk, meat, cheese, their whole face would blow up. Their face would actually get so puffy. They would look like those that have received too much plastic surgery and they're like 80 or 90 and they look almost alien-like. But that's paying the piper. When you're doing things like that to yourself, trying to look beautiful and look like some kind of image that you didn't earn, whatever that means, right? Yes, you can capitalize on that surgery for a minute. You can capitalize on that Botox for a minute. But eventually those hormones are going to kick in and try to push out the toxins. Eventually your immune system is going to want to kick in. And of course the food's going to help activate your immune system. So that's why these chicks that are getting plastic surgery and Botox and all these different things don't eat anything. Because once they eat the food, it'll activate the immune system, and the immune system will cause then the bloating, the swelling. You saw what I look like the last several years. And I never had Botox or plastic surgery, but I had to deal with whatever things that I did to myself through the holistic industry, through the pharmaceuticals, through whoever I got with sexually or whatever. And I had to release the fucking demons. And I had to sit looking fucking crazy. I remember when the pandemic came around, and it was like 2020. Remember, my boobs got bigger. Everything got bigger. Yeah, that's immune system activation. That was the beginning of immune system activation. And then it was the pain and suffering, yes, and the mucus and the headaches. And I had to release demons. I already conditioned myself to release demons down there, but even more so because you had to eat more to activate the immune system, eat more so the body has something to carry out the fucking demons. And I had to sit and stay home and stay safe, not play around with everybody, not walk into danger, microbial danger, and then cause another immune system activation, because you can only handle so much immune system activation. Once you go out there, right now people are doing that. They have colonies in their body that are trying to come to surface and things at the surface, and they walk into a crowded place, the energy triggers something. They walk into a Walmart, energy triggers something. They hug a person, energy triggers something. You don't know what's going to trigger your body to go through an immune system activation and try to release the demons and progressively rebuild the body. And so that's why staying home and staying safe when you're going through that is probably better, because eventually the climate's going to trigger something. But at least you can control the triggers. Sometimes watching Netflix triggers memories. Okay. That whole thing with Dexter, and then the cholas and the cholos that I was around when I was a kid. Fuck. And fighting some of these girls. Oh my God. I mean, I have no issue with any of it. It was just facing that was really crazy. Because I stuffed that down when I was at 8th grade camp, going into 8th grade, from 7th to 8th grade in that camp. That's probably why I was really aggressive. So those who went to junior high with me and saw how I was a little fucking crazy. Oh, I know. Yeah, I was a little fucked up back then because I got my ass whooped by some chola in cramp. And my mom was pretty hard on me about a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to fit in. So I did some stupid shit in junior high, some really stupid shit. Not enough to get suspended, but I fought guys. I fought people. And when I went to high school, I was fighting girls. Oh my God. Then I had time to go because I was just too much. But yeah, so facing that shit was like, holy crap. And so I purposely made that reel so I can look at that. I made that reel about the cholas and the cholos along with the music, because the oldies. And I purposely put those memories out there so I can look at them and face them. And sometimes you get a little scared because you don't want to offend anyone. Definitely you don't want to offend any kind of gang out there. I mean, yeah, some of these gangs are pretty scary. Mexican Mafia are pretty scary. Serrano is pretty scary. Norteño is pretty scary. But that was something that I grew up with. Okay, and dealt with. It wasn't like I have any issues. I have no issues with them. But it was just like, holy crap, I had to look at that. And so when I was listening to all this music, it's all these memories of stuff, and you have to let them come to surface and release them. And understand the culture back then. That's everything. All the music that I've played, all the videos I played, these are all memories that have a huge story behind them. And when you're looping in these musical tunes, it's because it's the memories are coming up telling you something. And some people stuff it down, they don't want to acknowledge them, and other people, they want to get through the difficult shit, they face them and make sure they characterize people correctly. You don't want to offend the people of the past, especially some of these cultures, because yeah, some of them are dangerous, but whatever. If you're not involved with them, they're not dangerous to you. But you want to characterize them correctly. It was a culture, and it was an experiment of the 80s. And everything stems back for even beyond the 30s and 40s. Because yeah, some of these cultures stemmed from the 30s and 40s, and then the 20s. And so you realize that all this has been just a progressive human experimentation. And then those that have what it takes to face the memories, face whatever they've done as a kid or as an adult, and if they weren't maimed too much during their times with their affiliations with whatever, and they don't have too many bullet wounds and machete wounds from whatever, that maybe they could survive the next phase. But a lot of people have been injured through their lifestyle belief system, and it's painful to relive that. And that's the thing about surgery. When you get a surgery, man, and you're trying to do what I'm doing, you will have that pain right where that surgery was. You will have to deal with that. And I can't tell you if you can handle it. That's why I'm warning you. If you've had too much injuries to you and too much surgical trauma, I couldn't tell you if you could do this. And so people are relegated to basically live in starvation because the food is going to activate their immune system. And they'll have to revisit the past, those tree rings of memories. And it's not going to be easy, if it's even possible. And so some people are stuck having to live off of pot and alcohol, and I get it. And whatever else that, is relatively legal. And they're stuck. And you feel bad because it's not your fault. But you're trying to give a way out to those that are not too damaged from the past and from their culture. But other people, you can't force them to feel the pain, especially if it's been pretty brutal and traumatizing. So, yeah. So we're in a really new and different time now, and it's pretty crazy. But I wanted to be the representation that someone, if they weren't too damaged from the past, that they could potentially give themselves a future. I mean, even if you had 4 or 5 kids, even if you did get surgeries, would you be able to handle the pain? At first, when you got the surgery, and then if you got an implant, getting those implants removed, and then going through that battle. Do you have the support structure? Do you even know what would happen or what could happen during that process? Would you go blind? Would you go deaf? I mean, would you be paralyzed for a minute? I couldn't tell you what you'd have to deal with during that process of coming up. I couldn't fucking tell you. But you've seen people, the last 3 years, some of these Hollywood stars go through the pain and suffering of something waking up and causing maybe a temporary paralysis or a temporary blindness or having wounds open up. And they're like, what happened? I'll tell you, my dog was the representation of what happens when you go back to surgical trauma. And that's why the system is trying to do everything they can as humanely as possible, because they know so many humans have gone through some major fucking trauma and that they don't want to revisit, and they will suffer because this environment is going to make people suffer, because it is now a great reset, a climate change. We're watching, we learned about the rise of America, those who are living today, and we're living through the fall of the last greatest experiment, the grand experiment. America is the grand experiment, the last greatest one. And so if you're lucky enough to have all the conditions be right for you, and you're not getting caught in the traditions out there trying to have a family and hormones are raging and you have to go and, if you're lucky enough to understand this information and know that you're going to need a lot of support and even fight for your life, if you're lucky enough to know the battle that you're going to be entering into and you can support it, I hope you're able to survive it. That's what I'm saying. See, those that have money, they can buy all that support. What do you mean? Well, if you happen to be in bed all day long and you can't even get up because your legs are hurting or something, you can have somebody bring you food. But you're going to have to eliminate, you have to release the demons down there. But you can always have somebody cook you the food, bring you the food, deliver you food. You still have to release your own demons because you can't have anyone. Well, but then sometimes people have to bring in the hospice system to help them release the demons and give them a head start, and then they can do it on their own. I mean, you can't cough for people, but some people can, could buy some of the support to help them through the hardest times. Let's say they're blind. You can buy somebody to help you get around. But those that are like me, I just have my husband who's on the road most of the time. I did mostly everything on my own, going through this trauma of releasing demons and sitting with the pain. It was on my own. I'm just stuck in bed, just listening to Netflix because I can't watch it would hurt too much to watch. Okay? But I actively set up the situation. I made sure I didn't have any obligations out there, that no one expected me to attend to something, that I could say no to social outings. I could say no to whatever. That's why you saw me release so many people out there. Not because they were bad. No, they were just whoever they are. They just do what they do. But I had to save myself and set up a freedom to be sick, a freedom to eat as much as I need to, the freedom to just pull back and just watch TV and just listen to it, and then eat the food, and then teach myself what's going on using everything Facebook and YouTube have given us, and learn how to play by the rules. I purposely wanted to make sure I understood the other arguments from mainstream media and from YouTube and from Facebook. I didn't resist because I understood now after reading some stuff that YouTube and Facebook have a point. And people do mischaracterize everything. And so when you finally learn all the arguments, you stop mischaracterizing and you learn how to develop an argument that gives credibility to both sides and still leave people with a choice. But when they say you're getting inactivated dead microbes, those are ghosts of the past. No, they're not dangerous. But some people's chemistry will fornicate with a ghost of the past that will develop a demon. That's always a possibility. That's why the inserts tell you, because sometimes the offspring are not very friendly. And then people develop babies out of that. And then you get the serial killers out there. But that was all the experiments out there. People have sex with each other and they develop offspring that are pretty aggressive. Do you know people's backgrounds? You don't. People have sex with each other. They don't know what's in their background. And they develop a lesson that was never learned. And then that child now is going to suffer. Because how are they going to learn the lessons? Mom and dad are just going to teach them the same stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch everything. It's going to be interesting to watch everything. Everything. So I hope you have what it takes to deal with facing your memories and releasing the trauma and rebuilding. I don't know if you can do it or not. That's why, again, you can never make claims that you can take away someone's pain or yeah, you can't assume that they can do what I'm doing, and you can't assume that you take away their pain. And so you have to know the answers in the food supply, and also recharacterizing symptoms, and know what you're in for when it comes to revisiting the past. And those who have implants and transplants and surgical trauma, I don't know if you can handle revisiting that, because you weren't awake during that time. You think you can handle revisiting that trauma while you're awake? Fuck. Yeah. So, anyways, that's all I'm gonna say right now, because I'm not reading this shit word for word. You can read whatever I wrote and make your own choices. I'm not advocating you do what I'm doing. I'm just showing you that, yes, I got lucky enough to learn the hard lessons and then revisit them and learn from them again and rebuild and redevelop a future. Because that's really ultimately what the second lesson is that I'm learning now, is to redevelop a future. I learned the lessons back then, didn't get into the same situations, but now it is rebuilding the body and redeveloping the future. So that way those lessons were not for naught. They were for something, and they could be something amazing in the future. But again, a lot of you have too much surgical trauma, too much trauma in your background, that revisiting the past won't be even possible. And that is reality. That's why I can never say that you could do what I'm doing. You can never say you can take away someone's pain and make claims with your politics, religion, and science and holistic allopathic. Or else, yeah, you will be a party to somebody's passing because they can't handle another remedy. They can't handle another surgery. So you just leave people's situations alone because you don't want their next of kin to blame you. But the system, again, gave you an avenue called the VACCNESs and the food to blame for whatever. And so that way, your friends and family can recommend you whatever, and they wouldn't be held responsible, right? Because no one's demonizing all the remedies out there, all the prescription drugs they're recommending each other. They're demonizing the food, the water, the air, and the public health therapies that are basically ghosts, yes. And so that's how the system got you guys to destroy each other, through ignorance. But you've chosen to be ignorant. You've chosen to think that you can take away people's pain and suffering and be the hero and be the god and goddess, but you can't make people feel suffering either. So I just walk away. I can't be a party to any of it. I'm done. Maybe you're not done either. I don't know. Maybe you're not done. Maybe you have to learn those lessons. Maybe you'll never learn the lessons. I don't know. All right, bye.